way I started out basically is, have you turned down the chance to buy a knife and found out later you missed out on a great knife? I know I have. And how about paying too much for a knife? And I've done that also. And I think the best way to avoid that sinking feeling in your stomach is getting into the paper collectibles. And I think the one thing in collecting, you want the most knowledge possible. So what I basically start out with is the best guide to start out, Blade's Guide to Knives and Values. Because this is the only book that's got buck in it. And it was originally written by, well, I'll say that's the number one, I might as well mention. Number two is The Story of Buck Knives, Family Business by Tom Abels. Of course, then next is our knife catalogs and retail price list, followed by dealer franchise information, sales programs, then buck advertisements, correspondence, bills of sales, number 6. And 7 is the website, and 8 is the CD, Buck Collectors Club CDs. And like I said, the reason I placed this overall because it has the most information about knives. And it was originally, well, it was published 1985, 89, 93, 97, 2001, and 2005. Of course, this is 2005, 6th edition. It was originally written by Bernard Levine, super expert on knives. If you've ever seen his What Is It column in the knife world, it's fantastic. He's a knowledgeable guy. I just mentioned the 5th edition, 2001, was edited by Bud Lang. Still said Levine's Guide to Knives and the Values. If you saw it at all, there was some write-up in Knife World places where Levine objected to that guide. And basically, when it came down to it, what he objected to was there was a formula system in there to price knives that they eliminated by taking a section out of the book, one more page of it. And also, all the prices were actually done by Bud Lang and Pete Cohen. So he disavowed it because it had his name on it. But really, when it comes down, it doesn't affect the buck sections at all. And really, price-wise, it didn't affect the rest. So it was a good guide. And then finally, in this edition, they finally changed it to Blade's Guide to Knives and Values because basically they bought the rights off of Levine quite a few issues ago. So even though he was a little upset with it, maybe not, no real reason to. Mentioned the original sections were written by Vern Taylor. Of course, Vern Taylor created the Buck Collectors Club. He's a sales representative for Buck. He was just super knowledgeable on buck knives. And when he did it, he wrote a fixed knife section, a folding knife section, a custom and commemorative knife section, and finally Buck Custom. Or pardon, Custom wasn't the limited edition. In subsequent edition, what I like about the first edition was that it had an 8x11 picture of all the early fixed knives, which all the other editions lost. They shrunk it down, it's hard to see. And in those editions, they were using cheap paper, wasn't as nice to look at. The 4th edition, they finally came back to white paper. In the 4th edition, in the 5th edition, that's when Larry Oden added his write-up on how to do a display. John Forsman added his custom knife section. And what else did we miss? Now the 6th edition here, the one thing I didn't like was the Joe Hauser section on fixed blades got eliminated, but it was all rewritten in the fixed blade section. So you lost some of the pictures of Vern Taylor's original pictures, but you've got Joe Hauser's great pictures of all early edition knives, and they're all priced, which is fantastic. And of course, it gives the history of the fix. Now, if you're familiar with Levine's, the one thing that'll goof you up a little bit, Levine's was always written, the front half was folding knives and the back half was sticks. For some reason, Buck folding knives is in the back half. Why they did that, I don't know. But as you notice, I mark mine so I can find it. So there's the Buck Custom Shop Knives by John Forsman. Here's the award-winning Buck collection by Larry Oden. And of course, the limited edition, the one bummer was the limited edition had custom knife pictures. That's gone. But of course, John Forsman fixed that up. So, and then the limited edition is nice because here you've got knives from 1975 on through all the 80s, and you've got quite a list of limited production knives and the values, and they're giving quantity, the issue price, and the value, which is graded into any limited production knives.
Where did we get that?
Pardon me? You can get this Knife World, go to knifeworld.com and they'll send it to you, or if you go to any knife shows, basically they'll have them for sale. I'm always bringing these for sale. But if you don't have a local source, go definitely to knifeworld.com. Mark Selesky, the editor of Knife World, will take care of you. Send you.
It'll be a little cheaper than going to like Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, the price is $30. If you go to him, you can get shipping. I forgot, you're right, Barnes and Noble and Border Knives, you can probably get these also.
Border knives?
Border Knives,
Come
Border
on.
books.
Come on,
Okay?
Dad.
You're right, okay.
Border knives. Yeah, well, your heart lies.
Yeah, I got knives in my brain, don't I? That's
I'm
terrible.
sorry, is this the first one that says Blade instead of Levine?
Yes, it is. First one says Blades Guide. If you see Levine, it's the older edition.
Yeah, we have the last Levine, so I haven't seen that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is 2005. Someone was asking about that. We're figuring it's probably going to be reissued next year. I don't know, but I don't know. I would hold my breath where you will see. You never know when they update these if they're on time. We mentioned the second source, The Story of Buck Knives by Tom Abels. It doesn't give you prices, but it gives you everything about the family. It has great pictures of the knives, the factories. Back on page 96, 97, it's got a great early knife section. So right there, you've got all the early knives and what they look like. And then right behind it is the factory section. So there's a lot of information here. I like it because I go back through this besides this one if I'm researching items, because there is information in there. And then that gets us down to the catalogs and retail price list.
That book was produced by Buck Knives, so there's no ISBN number to like get it from Barnes and Noble or anything like that. Knife World may have some, but the gift shop doesn't have any. They said they got one copy and they're keeping it. And we haven't had a chance to talk to Joe House or anybody and find out if they're going to reproduce it or.
I would think they would republish it. I mean, I think they've done a few editions.
Because they're getting hard to find.
That's good source for come up a few dates too.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's good for dating. And that's, that's one of the things. This is fun here because if you get the whole set and before you leave, definitely get a copy, as many copies as you can here of each of the catalogs, because even though some of them will look the same, you got to look real close a lot of times and you'll find out that there's something different. We were looking, like on here, well, this one's got the white Corian handle, which is not on the other ones. One of the things that Joe Hauser found, looking through them, he basically, in his article, he mentioned that the 104 model was probably the predecessor of 119. It's the same, the 5.5-inch blade, the 119.6, but the thickness, this is the only one that's as thick as a 119, so that's probably the predecessor right there. In fact, I want to find one of those today.
Sometimes it's just the verbiage.
Pardon me?
Sometimes
Oh, yes.
it's just the verbiage.
Basically, what I did over time, I had collected some of this, and then I bought Eugene Shoemaker's 5 big loose leaf binders full of this information. And when I researched my 120s, I basically went through each catalog, found out where it was, and like you said, this gives the weight, the width, the length of the knife, the length of the blade, the handle material. So there's all your backup information you want on what you're doing. Okay. What I'm going to give you right here is my 3-page information. I'm giving you also the 3-page from Larry Oden, who did it 5 years ago. He gets real heavy into what you can find on these catalogs. So take a look at that later on. think you'll find it. I figured there was no way I was gonna be able to rewrite as much as Larry had the information on what to do with catalogs and the literature. It's a great source. But the one last thing I wanted to mention is what is so great about this is it's so great for your displays. If you've ever seen Larry Old's display, it stands out because he's got some catalogs in there. He's got the information on the knives. He mentions in his write-up there that the book Buck put out on knife know-how told him all about the barrel nut knife and the pin handle knife, found the differences, which really, I guess to an extent, him writing about it elevated the difference, because the barrel nut knife, of course, was only made for a couple of years, and all those are going to cost $175 off for a barrel nut version. The same thing with the pin pommel on it. So it's something he found out right here in the literature. As we were saying, for displays, and the National Knife Collectors Association has a sheet, double sheet, that the judges use to judge your displays. The first thing it says is, do you have a title? It's 5 points. Most people won't forget the title. The second one is, does your display exemplify the title? That's going to get you 10 to 15 points right there. The next thing is your display representative of what you have? And that's the thing I found out in displaying, is you want to limit your display to the categories. Go back in the newsletter, look at the categories in displaying, and you want to, if you're going to do a buck display, you want to get one of those categories, because that's what you're going to win the award in. And that's how the points are going to be awarded. And my example was when I started collecting custom knives. I had a custom knife display, took it to a show. I wasn't winning any awards. Well, finally, I looked at someone come out, look at that award category. Well, does your display, does it have a representative sample of the knives? There's no way I can get a representative sample of every custom knife ever made. When I narrowed it down to Michigan custom knives, I was able to win awards. The same thing on your buck things. If you get too broad, you're not going to get in there. But there's a couple great categories like historical, which I love, of course. Is a nice category where you can broaden your display a little more and show everything in it. But the biggest thing is in your displays is, do you exemplify the title? You have a representative sample, and for 20 points, you have other related literature. This is the one thing that will get you an award. Someone who puts a display together with all their knives and display cases has got it great. It might be the best one ever of that knife, but if it doesn't have related items, it loses 20 points, and right away you can win. So it's one of those things that most people don't realize until, like I said, the guy pointed out to me what the display goes by, what the judging goes by. And this is one of the greatest items you can have. You can just really make your display pop up by putting a buck poster and some buck catalogs there. And of course, basically, if you've collected all this information, you put it in loose leaf binder, you put it right out there. You open your loose leaf binder, the front page lists all your knives, description, and behind there is all your backup material. That's going to give you extra points right there. That's why
you don't want to get the literature spread out over your display where it's overpowering the knives. You want the knife to be the main focus.
Okay. The thing I got to mention before, first, now, we told you should collect these things. I love to go to paper shows, to go to knife shows, and pick up as much literature as I can get. But if you want to cheat, all you gotta do is go to the Buck Collectors website. We've got all the catalogs on there. We've got all the newsletters on there. There's so much information on there. It's great. And you also can buy the CDs. So with the CD, you can scroll through there and pick whatever you want. So it's an added source, and besides, it's a little convenient maybe carrying all the paper on. But I love the paper. I love to have the backup in my book. So I can go through it. And the final word of caution is, as you're going through, checking out all your things, just be a little careful that one of the things Buck and everyone does is they'll continue that picture on. So this picture with the single line Buck ended up in catalogs past 68 when they had the USA in there. So that's the only thing you, little word of caution is don't use that as the complete rule. Double check your sources a little bit. But like I said, there's a great write-up with Larry Oldham to tell you all those cautions on using the literature right in here. So at that point, I'm basically done. If anyone has any questions, I'm glad to answer them. And if not, come on up and get a copy of everything here. Oh, and the one other thing, if you get a chance, I have a collector survey that Augusta State College down in Georgia put out. It doesn't ask you anything personal, doesn't ask you anything values, it's basically asking you why you collect. My collection helps me express my identity. Agree or disagree. Collecting gives me a sense of purpose. Of course, I love the one in there that says, if I stop collecting, would I go into depression? I think I would. But if you get a chance to fill out the survey.
Yeah, fill out the surveys and give them back to us. We mail them.